The battle of the hypercars was always going to come down to this: a flying visit to Italy and an audience with LaFerrari. Using hybrid technology solely to maximise performance and taking technology directly from the Grand Prix team, it's everything Ferrari knows about road and race cars in one extraordinary package. At its heart is a 789 horsepower V12 that screams to 9,500 RPM. Combined with an electric motor that's constantly on call, your right foot never has less than 950 horsepower and 715 foot-pounds at its command. Active aerodynamics continuously manage the airflow above and beneath the car, while the shrink-wrapped bubble canopy creates minimal drag and a sensational driving environment. On this day of days, we first head for the hills above Maranello, where the roads twist and tumble and the V12's manic shriek shatters the silence for miles around. However, to truly understand LaFerrari, we need a test track. So with sweaty palms and a pounding heart, we return to Maranello and the sacred tarmac of Fiorano, where at last we're free to drive LaFerrari as fast as we dare. Okay, so I think this is probably the day we thought might never come. We finally get the chance to drive LaFerrari. We're at Fiorano, the sun's shining, it's about as special as days get. And this now is the third and final part of the hybrid hypercar trilogy, really. It's been quite a poker game, hasn't it, with Porsche showing its hand and then McLaren trumping them, and then really I think everyone's been waiting for this car to see just how good it can be, and the competition is pretty fierce. But from driving the car earlier today, and this is the first time we've been on the circuit, it's a really immediately super impressive car. The nuts and bolts of it you're probably aware of, but the fundamental differences between this car and say a P1 is that Ferrari have chosen for this not to run in electric only mode, so it's not bothered with any of that. All the batteries exist for is to improve and intensify the performance of this car to a point where the batteries are always doing something. They're always either being charged or discharging, and they're always discharging when you've got your foot on the throttle. So, you know, you never get less than its maximum performance, and that translates into something that's absolutely appropriate for Ferrari. They kind of crinkled their noses up a bit when I asked them about electric only, and I really don't think they had much appetite for that. And you kind of understand exactly why when you drive this thing. It's so angry and it's got so much technology in it, and yet already you can feel, it just feels like a traditional Ferrari supercar. You've got, to all intents and purposes, the ultimate naturally aspirated V12, because all the batteries do is fill in what Ferrari claims to be a gap in its torque delivery. They've tailored the petrol engine so it delivers top end, and they've filled in the gap below that with the batteries, which is very clever. So you get immediate throttle response, but way more. It's like super augmented by the batteries, which is a totally different experience, I think, to the McLaren, which feels turbocharged anyway, and then you get the thump of power from the batteries. So I'm going to try CST off now, which is quite intimidating, I can tell you. It actually feels bizarrely It just feels like a big 458's big badass brother, really, in the way it happens. And that's in no way an insult to this car. That is absolutely monstrous. Too carried away, the other thing that's worth discussing are the brakes, because they have regen, and they also have regen during ABS intervention, which is a step on from what Porsche have done. That was third gear, by the way. And the big fear, as ever with regen, is the consistency of the pedal, and this is so much better than the Porsche. I'm sorry guys at Stuttgart, but you have real precision and real feel. I would say they're a match for the McLaren, which has no regen at all. You do at very low speed get ever such a slight hint of more than one thing. That was on the brakes. My God. It's a totally different experience to a P1, which I think is brilliant, because the P1 is sensational in its own way, and exactly what you would hope McLaren will come out with, and this is exactly what you want a Ferrari hypercar to be. It's angry and it's exuberant, and it's a challenge, but it's much more friendly than you would ever imagine something like this to be. Right, we'll do one cooling down lap now, just to try and soak that in, really. Bloody hell. In a lot of respects, if you're lucky enough to have been in any modern Ferrari, so 458, F12, it's reminiscent of those in a lot of respects. Gear shift, steering feel there's real agility still, but the steering is slightly calmer. I think it's easier to place and not quite so hyper. But there's something more, there's something about the driving environment. They've worked really hard on the cockpit packaging to reduce the frontal area, to reduce drag. So the bubble canopy is very tight. If you look at some of the detail shots, the mirrors are way out on supports from the car, and it gives you a sense that the car's really wide, but it's not. It's just that the cockpit glass is much narrower. The seat is fixed, the cushion's fixed to the tub, and the wheel comes towards you and the pedals come towards you. And it's a different ritual when you get in the car, because you're there, you're fixed, it feels like you're literally bolted into the car and everything comes to you. And I think that intensifies the driving experience and your sense of connection. Just like the other two hypercars, it just makes you feel totally exhilarated and totally elated. What it's going to be like, we will be working our arses off to get these three cars together, and it will be, I think we could all die very happy people if we manage to make that test happen, because seriously, there's nothing like this generation of cars. It's just a spectacular thing.